I'll never forget their faces when that photo appeared on everyone's phones simultaneously. My hands trembled as I stood in the center of our living room, surrounded by 30 of our closest friends and family, all of them staring at their screens in silent horror. I'd spent 3 months planning David's surprise 30th birthday party. Our apartment was transformed with balloons, catered food, and a custom cake displaying his favorite band's logo. Champagne chilled in buckets. A slideshow of our 5 years together projected onto the wall. His parents had flown in from Seattle. His college roommates drove 6 hours to be here. I'd orchestrated it all while working full-time and hiding every detail from him. He's 2 minutes away, his coworker had texted moments earlier. Everyone was positioned perfectly, waiting in hushed anticipation. Then, at 7:32 p.m., every phone in the room chimed simultaneously, including mine. The image showed my husband with his arms wrapped around a woman I'd never seen before. They were kissing in what appeared to be a hotel room. The message below read, "Sorry about the party, M. Chelsea and I are celebrating differently tonight. Don't wait up." 30 pairs of eyes darted between their phones and my face as the room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. My mother-in-law gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." My best friend Megan wouldn't look at me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I walked calmly to the bar, poured a glass of the expensive champagne I'd bought for our toast, and addressed the stunned crowd. "Well," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "it looks like the surprise is on me." The silence lasted 3 excruciating seconds before erupting into chaotic murmurs. David's father approached me, his face ashen. "Emily, I don't know what to say. We had no idea." "Of course you didn't," I replied, though I wasn't entirely convinced. Something about Megan's averted gaze nagged at me. "Please, everyone, stay. Enjoy the food. No sense wasting it all." Some guests awkwardly shuffled toward the exit, muttering apologies and avoiding eye contact. Others hovered uncertainly near the buffet table I'd spent hours arranging. David's mother was crying quietly in the corner while his father attempted to console her. I moved through the room mechanically, my mind strangely detached from my body. 5 years of marriage. The mortgage we'd signed together last year. Our joint bank account. The fertility treatments we were scheduled to begin next month. All of it flashed through my mind like fragments of someone else's life. Megan finally approached, her expression a mask of concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm so sorry. What can I do?" "You can tell me how long you've known," I said quietly. Her face froze. "What?" "You heard me." I took another sip of champagne. "You're not surprised?" "Not really." She glanced around nervously. "This isn't the time, Emily. Let me help you clear everyone out, and we can talk." "Actually, I think this is exactly the time." Something cold and unfamiliar had settled in my chest. "How long have you known?" Megan lowered her voice to a whisper. "It's complicated. I only suspected. There were a few times when he was supposed to be working late, but Jake saw him at bars with people." "People?" "Or her specifically." I pressed. "Emily, please." I noticed a small box in her purse, my birthday gift to her from last month. Inside was a custom bracelet I'd asked David to pick up from the jeweler while I was working late. The memory clicked into place like the final piece of a puzzle I never wanted to complete. "You were with him that day, weren't you? When he picked up your bracelet." I felt dizzy as the implications cascaded through my mind. "Did you meet her that day too? Have you all been laughing behind my back this entire time?" Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. My alleged best friend since college had been watching my marriage crumble and said nothing. Possibly worse. "Get out," I whispered. "Emily, get out." My voice ripped through the room, silencing every conversation. My body was shaking, but my mind had never been clearer. "All of you, get out of my house. Now." As people scrambled toward the door, I noticed David's laptop on our desk. He'd left it behind this morning in his rush to work, or more likely, his rush to meet Chelsea. He never went anywhere without that computer. Except today. The day he knew I'd be setting up for his party. The day he planned to humiliate me. I opened it, heart pounding as I entered his password. A password I realized he'd changed recently. But I knew his patterns. It was always some variation of his childhood street name and a number. After 3 attempts, I was in. That's when I noticed the small external drive connected to his laptop. That was new and suspicious. "Emily, we're leaving," David's mother announced stiffly from across the room. I don't know what's gotten into him. I barely heard her as I clicked on the drive's contents. A folder labeled Chelsea contained hundreds of photos dating back nearly 2 years. My stomach lurched. "Wait," I said, my attention snapping back to my mother-in-law. "Before you go, there's something you should know." I unplugged the external drive and slipped it into my pocket. Evidence secured. Then I walked to the bar and refilled my champagne. "Your son has been leading a double life," I announced, my teacher's voice projecting clearly across the now half-empty room. And apparently, everyone knew except me. 3 hours later, I sat alone in our apartment surrounded by deflating balloons and half-eaten canapes. The silence was deafening. I'd spent the last hour going through the external drive's contents, each photo and message like a knife between my ribs. 2 years. Not some brief affair or momentary lapse in judgment. 2 deliberate years of deception while I taught elementary school children, maintained our home, and planned for our future family. At first, I thought about packing my bags and disappearing before he returned. But that would mean surrendering our home, the home I'd contributed every penny of my teacher's salary to maintain while he built his marketing career. And it would mean he'd won. I poured the last of the champagne and pulled out my phone. With methodical precision, I began taking photos of the party decorations, the elaborate cake with "Happy 30th David," written in perfect fondant lettering, and the gifts stacked neatly on our sideboard. I documented everything I'd done for a man who hadn't even granted me the dignity of a private betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, David's assistant at work. He's staying at the Renaissance downtown. Room 714. In case you were wondering. I stared at the message, wheels turning in my mind. The Renaissance was where we'd spent our wedding night. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sarah and I had become friendly over the years at company functions. She'd always seemed uncomfortable around David lately, and now I understood why. Another text arrived. He's been using the joint account to fund their weekends. Check the statements. I've seen the expense reports he doctors for reimbursements. I'm sorry, Emily. My hands moved automatically to our financial documents folder. I'd always trusted David to manage our finances since he had a head for numbers. As I flipped through recent statements, weekend getaways and jewelry purchases I'd never seen materialized before my eyes. Thousands of dollars from our savings, money we'd been setting aside for fertility treatments and eventually a bigger home for our family. A family that had clearly never been part of his plans. I set down the statements, a cold clarity washing over me. I had 2 choices, collapse under the betrayal or stand up and fight for what was mine, for the life I deserved. I picked up my phone and called my coworker, Grace, the only person I now trusted. "Can you cover my class for a few days?" I asked when she answered. "I need some personal time." "Of course," she replied without hesitation. "Is everything okay?" "No," I said honestly, "but it will be." After we hung up, I opened my laptop and began methodically changing passwords to all our shared accounts. Then I transferred my portion of our savings to a new account at a different bank. It wasn't theft if it was my money, and I'd need resources for what came next. A text from David finally appeared. We need to talk. I'm coming home tomorrow." I didn't respond. Instead, I created a new email address and sent myself copies of all the evidence I'd found. Then I called a locksmith and arranged for the locks to be changed first thing in the morning. As I moved through these tasks, I found my shock transforming into something else, something harder and more determined. The Emily who had spent weeks planning the perfect surprise party was gone. In her place was a woman I didn't yet recognize, but was beginning to respect. My phone buzzed again. Megan, Emily, please let me explain. It's not what you think. I laughed bitterly. Not what I think. I had photo evidence, financial records, and the public humiliation to prove exactly what it was. I texted back, "You're right. Let's meet tomorrow. I want to hear everything." Sometimes the best way to get information was to let people believe they could talk their way out of a situation. Megan had betrayed me, but she might still be useful. The doorbell rang, startling me. It was nearly midnight. Who would be visiting now? Through the peephole, I saw Chelsea. My husband's mistress was standing at my door, her perfect blonde hair swept into a casual ponytail, wearing designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She shifted nervously from foot to foot. I opened the door but blocked the entrance. "Can I help you?" She blinked, apparently surprised by my composure. I thought you should know the whole story. From me. The photos weren't explanation enough? I asked coldly. "That wasn't supposed to happen," she said quickly. "David said he was just going to call you, not that." I had no idea he would send that to everyone. How considerate of you to be concerned about the method of my humiliation. I leaned against the doorframe. "What do you want, Chelsea?" She glanced past me into the apartment, taking in the party decorations. Something like guilt flickered across her face. "Look, David told me you two were practically separated. That you were only staying together for appearances, but you both dated other people. He said you had an arrangement." I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make her flinch. "Is that what he told you? And you believed him? The man who's been lying to his wife for 2 years." She had the decency to look embarrassed. "I found out the truth a few months ago, when I saw the fertility clinic paperwork in his bag. My blood ran cold. The paperwork. Our future. She knew about that too. And yet you continued the affair," I observed. "He said he was going to tell you after his birthday. That he was waiting for the right time." Her eyes welled with tears. "I loved him, Emily. I thought he loved me too." "Thought?" I picked up on her use of past tense. Chelsea's expression hardened. "He's been lying to both of us. There's another woman, his coworker Jennifer. I found their messages last week." The revelation should have hurt, but instead, it just confirmed what I was beginning to understand about the man I'd married. David wasn't just a cheater. He was a pathological liar who used people until they were no longer useful. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. She pulled an envelope from her purse. "Because I thought you should have this. It's access to a shared cloud drive where he kept everything. All the women, all the lies. Password is Chelsea94. She paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I really didn't know about the party." I took the envelope, not out of forgiveness, but because information was power. "Does he know you're here?" She shook her head. "He thinks I'm at my apartment crying over his confession, that he's going back to you to try to make it work. Meanwhile, he's probably with Jennifer." "Well, Chelsea," I said, straightening up, "it seems we've both been played by an expert." "What are you going to do?" she asked. A plan was already forming in my mind, one that would require precision, evidence, and perhaps an unlikely alliance. "I'm going to take back what's mine," I replied, starting with my dignity. The next morning, I sat across from Megan at a coffee shop 3 blocks from my apartment. Her eyes were red-rimmed from crying, but I felt nothing. It was as if my capacity for sympathy had been surgically removed overnight. "Start talking," I said the moment she sat down. She twisted her hands nervously. "I swear I only found out a month ago. David and I ran into each other at that jewelry store when he was picking up my bracelet. Chelsea was with him, and he introduced her as a client. But the way they looked at each other, I knew. And you didn't think to tell me?" I kept my voice level. "He begged me not to," she whispered. "Said he was ending it and would tell you himself. That it would destroy you if you heard it from me instead of him." How considerate. I took a sip of my coffee. "And did you also know about the money? The weekends away?" The fact that he's been sleeping with his coworker too. Her head snapped up. What? No. He told me it was just Chelsea and that it was a mistake. Well, he lied. To all of us. I leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen now, Megan. You're going to tell me every conversation you had with David about his affairs. Every detail. And then you're going to help me. Help you do what? She asked cautiously. Get evidence. I need to know exactly when you found out, who else knew, and what David has been saying about me to justify his behavior. I pulled out my phone, and I'm recording this conversation, by the way. Megan paled but nodded. What choice do I have? The same choice I had yesterday, I replied. None. For the next hour, she detailed how David had confided in her, spinning tales about our loveless marriage and my alleged disinterest in intimacy. How he'd claimed I was career-obsessed and neglectful. How he'd painted himself as the victim of my supposed emotional distance. Each revelation stoked the fire building inside me. Not just anger at David's betrayal, but rage at how thoroughly he'd reconstructed the narrative of our marriage to vilify me while positioning himself as the wronged party. He told people I didn't want children, I said, the words bitter on my tongue. When I've been injecting myself with hormones for months to prepare for IVF. Megan couldn't meet my eyes. He told Jake and me that the fertility treatments were your idea, against his wishes. That he was just going along with it to make you happy. My hands clenched around my coffee cup. And the weekend trips on our joint account? The jewelry purchases? He said those were work expenses. That his company would reimburse him, but it was easier to use your joint account for now. I nodded, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. And last night? Did you know about his plan to humiliate me at the party? No, she exclaimed, looking genuinely horrified. Emily, I would never have gone along with that. When that photo came through, I was as shocked as everyone else. I studied her face, searching for deception and finding none. Perhaps she wasn't a willing accomplice, just a coward who valued her friendship with David over her loyalty to me. I need you to do something for me, I said finally. Consider it your only chance at redemption. Anything, she promised quickly. I need you to meet with David. Tell him you're worried about me. Get him talking about what happened, about Chelsea, about his plans. Record everything. Her eyes widened. Emily, I don't know if I can. You can, and you will. I cut her off. Unless you want Jake to find out about that night in Vegas 3 years ago. The color drained from her face. The night in question had occurred during a teacher's conference, a drunken mistake with a colleague that she'd sworn me to secrecy about. I'd never dreamed of using it against her until now. That's blackmail, she whispered. No, that's consequences. I gathered my purse and stood up. Text me when it's done. As I walked away, I felt a twinge of guilt for using her indiscretion against her. But it disappeared quickly. The old Emily might have forgiven Megan's betrayal, might have tried to understand her difficult position. But the woman I was becoming recognized that some bridges weren't worth saving once they'd been burned. My phone buzzed with a text from David. I'm at the house. Where are you? The locks are changed. I smiled grimly. Let him wonder. Let him worry. For once, he could be the one left in the dark. When I returned to our apartment building, I took the stairs instead of the elevator, needing time to compose myself. Outside our door stood David, looking disheveled and frantic. Emily. Jesus, where have you been? Why are the locks changed? I brushed past him and unlocked the door with my new key. I think you know why. He followed me inside, his expression shifting between anger and contrition with practiced ease. Look, I can explain about that photo. It was stupid and cruel, and I never meant to hurt you like that. Which part was stupid and cruel? I asked calmly, setting down my purse. The 2-year affair? The draining of our savings? Or just getting caught? He blanched. How did you? Know about the money? Or know that it's been going on for 2 years? I pulled out the external drive from my pocket. You really shouldn't leave evidence lying around, David. His eyes fixed on the drive, panic flashing across his face. You went through my private files? That's an invasion of privacy. I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. Privacy? You're worried about privacy after sending that photo to 30 of our closest friends and family. He ran his hands through his hair, switching tactics. I was drunk. Chelsea and I had a fight, and I was angry. It was a terrible mistake. A mistake, I repeated. Like the mistake of using our fertility treatment money to fund your affair? Or the mistake of sleeping with Jennifer from your office while telling Chelsea she was the only one. His face contorted with shock. How do you know about Jennifer? Chelsea paid me a visit last night. I moved to the kitchen counter and picked up the thick folder I'd prepared that morning. She was quite informative once she realized you've been lying to her too. You can't believe anything she says, he sputtered. She's unstable, jealous. Save it, I cut him off. I've heard enough lies from you to last a lifetime. Now it's your turn to listen. I opened the folder and spread its contents across our dining table. Bank statements highlighting suspicious transactions, printouts of text messages between him and Chelsea that I'd accessed through the cloud drive, and photos of them together going back 2 years. This is what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady. You're going to sign these papers giving me full ownership of this apartment. You're going to repay every penny you stole from our joint account. And you're going to tell everyone the truth about what happened. He stared at the documents, his face flushing with anger. And why the hell would I do that? I'm not signing anything without my lawyer. I slid another piece of paper toward him, a printout of our company's code of ethics with the anti-fraternization policy highlighted. Because if you don't, your company will receive evidence of your affair with Jennifer, along with documentation of how you've been falsifying expense reports to fund your extracurricular activities. His face went pale. You wouldn't. I already have. I held up my phone, showing him the email drafted to his boss with all the evidence attached. It's scheduled to send in 24 hours unless I cancel it. This is blackmail, he hissed. No court would approve this under duress. Then call your lawyer, I replied calmly. In fact, let's call them right now. I'm sure they'd be interested in these expense reports that Sarah provided. I pulled out another folder. Your assistant has quite a detailed record of your creative accounting. His eyes widened. Sarah gave you those? She's been watching you lie for months. Turns out, loyalty has its limits. He pulled out his phone. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow morning, I said. The papers or the evidence goes public. Your career, your reputation, possibly your freedom if the company presses charges for fraud. Your choice. He stared at me for a long moment, calculation clear in his eyes. I could see him weighing options, looking for leverage, for a way out. Even if I sign now, you know these wouldn't hold up legally, he said finally. Perhaps, I conceded. But the scandal would still ruin you. And the apartment isn't worth that much in the grand scheme of things, is it, David? Not compared to your career, your family's opinion of you, your future prospects. His phone buzzed repeatedly. I glimpsed Chelsea's name on the screen. Apparently, she was having second thoughts about betraying him. I'll have my answer in the morning, he said stiffly, gathering his coat. This isn't over. She's all yours, I said as he finished signing. Along with Jennifer and whoever else you've been lying to. I'm done. He stood up, trying to salvage some dignity. You'll regret this, Emily. You're not as clever as you think you are. I smiled, feeling truly calm for the first time since that photo had appeared on my phone. Actually, I am. By the way, I've filed a police report about the stolen funds. They'll be contacting you soon. The color drained from his face. You're bluffing. I handed him a copy of the police report. The detective's name is Wilson. He was very interested in the evidence I provided. David grabbed his jacket and moved toward the door, his composure finally cracking. This isn't over. Actually, it is. I followed him to the door. One more thing. I've already spoken to a divorce attorney. She'll be contacting yours tomorrow. As the door closed behind him, I leaned against it, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried me through the past 24 hours was fading, leaving behind a hollow ache that I suspected would be my companion for some time. But beneath the pain was something new, a fierce pride in my own resilience. The woman who had spent months planning the perfect surprise party might be gone, but in her place stood someone stronger. Someone who wouldn't be defined by another person's betrayal. I walked to the window and watched David storm out of the building and onto the street. From my vantage point 5 floors up, he looked small, diminished. I closed the curtains and turned back to my apartment. My phone buzzed with a text from David, all signed tomorrow. But this means war for everything else. I didn't respond. Let him think he still had fight left in him. I knew better. I had the evidence, I had Sarah's testimony, and most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. I texted my lawyer the update. He'll sign tomorrow. Prepare for phase 2. Her response was immediate. Already on it. You've done well, Emily. The decorations still hung limply from the walls, sad reminders of yesterday's humiliation. I began taking them down methodically, filling trash bags with the remnants of my failed marriage. When I reached the custom cake, I hesitated only briefly before dropping it entire into the garbage. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace. Just checking in. Do you need anything? I typed back, yes. Help redecorating my apartment tomorrow. Her response was immediate. Absolutely. Wine and paint samples at noon. I smiled, a genuine smile that reached somewhere deep inside me. Perfect. As I surveyed the half-dismantled party scene, I realized I had my own surprise to celebrate, the discovery of my own strength in the face of betrayal. It wasn't the celebration I had planned, but perhaps it was the one I needed. Was I right to take such drastic measures against David, or should I have tried to work things out? Would you have exposed the affair to his workplace, or kept it private for the sake of dignity?